What did you guys think of stacking the show towards the first hour and a half with drama and comedy, and then having everybody sit through miniseries and variety? Because at first I was really concerned. I thought that's a terrible idea, and then I started to realise that all of the people that we actually kind of really care about weren't being played off as much as the people towards the end. That's always been a complaint at the Emmys. They save all the important stuff towards the end and then they play them off after 30 seconds, without any sense of emotion or, that the show is working. They just want to finish on time so the news can start. And all the good stuff towards the beginning, they were letting that play through, and it was really lovely to see. And then we just had to sit through all the miniseries categories that were a big snore. But what did you guys think?
I like the block idea. I just don't like the idea of comedy and drama being the first two blocks, back to back. I would think maybe, just as an example, maybe a comedy block, and then maybe pull in drama and then movies or something, or some. I didn't like everything that I cared about being in the first, hour and a half, and then that second hour and a half. Things I didn't care about nearly as much. In fact, when they got done with the variety, I'm sitting there thinking, what's left? There's like 45 minutes left, and the movies are left. It's basically an HBO congratulations hour, and for all the movie categories, because they're the only ones that do movies anymore. And I just think maybe putting that in the middle somewhere. You've got some big stars. I think that would keep people's attention. Maybe do a comedy or a drama more toward the end. But that's just my feeling on it.
I would agree with you, Rob. I would say that they're stacking all their good stuff up front there, but still it caused us to be fully engaged because we care so much about the series stuff. But then, I know it just kind of wound down and became a little tedious when we had to suffer through all the other stuff. Let's talk about the winners of Best Series, Rob. What do you want to talk about first, comedy or drama?
Well, let's talk about drama first. It was the first one announced. There was no surprise there with Mad Men winning. And although I had a couple of seconds where I was thinking, are we going to get a surprise here? And then Mad Men was announced and Matt Weiner got up on the stage and did his thing. And, fair enough. It is probably the most beautifully produced show on TV, best writing and all that stuff, and probably well-deserved. I can't see that losing now for a little while until it really falls off the wagon. It's going to be like The West Wing and shows of that caliber.
I disagree. I agree that it's a very worthy winner, but don't you think that it benefited so much by timing this year, where, of course, the new season debuted exactly when the Emmy voting commenced, and that Dexter and Lost may have been bigger threats here if they had had such advantageous timing, right? So,
that's right.
If you agree with that, then we don't know what the timing will be next year. Matter of fact, I've talked to a few of these network programmers, and they were saying, we have to be a little smarter about this too. And if they really follow up on that, we may see some more strategic placement of these shows to coincide smartly with Emmy voting.
Yeah, I'm okay with the Mad Men win. I really like the show, and it's one of my favorites on TV. In fact, when we did our own awards, I really sat looking at my computer for minutes trying to decide between Mad Men and Lost because I like them, so much. One thing that I noticed, though, Tom, you wrote the book on the Emmys, literally. There's never been a show, I looked it up today, that has won 3 series awards without winning a single acting award. No guest acting, no supporting acting, no lead acting. 14 shows, 14 series from 1950 to now have won, in drama or comedy, have won 3 times or more. We're talking about Hill Street Blues, L.A. Law, Mary Tyler Moore, All in the Family, Cheers. They all had acting wins, and some of them had tons of acting wins. Mad Men hasn't gotten a single one. Isn't that odd?
That really is odd, especially since it is widely admired for its acting. But, I don't know, what do you think, Rob? Why not?
Well, that's a good question. You know what? It gets the nomination, so people do really respect the actors, but it just must be, again, that really understated, they're all playing that 1960s type vibe, and maybe there's just not enough, as I always say, throwing stuff across the room. And, John Hamm finally got to cry a little, and it still wasn't enough to overcome the Bryan Cranston machine. And they're not going to be winning any acting Emmys until Matt Weiner writes an episode where Christina Hendricks gets to scream and shout and break some glass, and she might finally get that Emmy. But otherwise, Chris, that's a really good point. I never thought of that. And let's see what happens. Mad Men might start. I think maybe people are starting to tire of it slightly. It only won writing. It only got 1 or 2 nominations in each of the writing and directing. It didn't win directing. It's not the big breakout show anymore. So perhaps maybe there'll never be an acting win from that show.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is...
Let me interject this point here, Chris. Hold on.
Okay,
Let me interject this point here. Last night, backstage, Matt Weiner was asked, when is somebody going to finally be shot on the show? Nobody's ever been killed by gunfire. And he had an amusing answer to that. He said, well, JFK did off stage since they covered the Kennedy assassination. But you could see not only did he have this kind of quizzical look on his face, we all did, and thought, yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? That he is so reserved dramatically. He's appreciated as a great dramatist, as a great writer, producer, but yet has such restraint that we've never seen the kind of gunslinging on that show that we see on The Sopranos or expect from TV dramas. And I was kind of wondering if that's going to cause us to see it in the future. I don't know.
Well, back to the acting thing for just a second. I just want to add one more thing. I mean, you could say it's one of the greatest ensembles on TV, and maybe that's one reason it hasn't won any solo acting awards. It's won SAG Ensemble, I guess, once or twice. But the other odd thing to me was it is a beautiful show, a well-crafted show. It hasn't won directing yet either. Never has won directing, not even for the pilot. It's won some craft, creative awards.
Wow.
Behind the scenes awards. It wins writing every year, and obviously it wins series every year, but it's not one of those shows that you could kind of put in the caliber of a lot of those others I mentioned, those 14 that won a ton of series awards, because they were well loved in all categories.
So how about comedy, fellas? Because I was totally thrilled with Modern Family winning so many awards last night. Steve Levitan gave a couple of excellent speeches. Eric Stonestreet was so emotional. We got to see Sofia Vergara, always a highlight for me. And then Modern Family wins comedy series, and I was like, yeah, I was really happy, and I'm sure a lot of people were. What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, I can tell you backstage and actually at the Emmys, it was going over really, really big. But when you crossed the street to where the fans were, those little hearts were breaking all over for Glee, Lucy. You could see a real divide at the Emmys this year in that comedy contest between the elitism, the snobism, the sophisticated thing that appeals to Emmy voters and to media people like ourselves, that Modern Family is the kind of show that meets our taste. And then there's the great masses out there, the passionate fans. And Glee was there. Yeah, it got shut out.
Well, not Tom, just not the masses either. I read several kind of ill-informed articles today, news articles as well as reviews of the show, where they actually called it a shocker that Glee lost. Yeah. And it's just because they don't keep up with, they don't know, really how these things work, and the fact that almost everybody, Tom, that you interviewed and got opinions from, as well as Rob and myself and yourself, we knew that Glee really wasn't going to win this category. It was much more of a Modern Family kind of year, and if Modern Family wasn't going to win, they were going to maybe return it back to 30 Rock. But Glee really, I don't think really had much of a chance at winning this category.
I told you, I actually have found 2 voters in that category. There are only 200. It's hard to find any of them, and they both voted for Glee. So it was actually in the mix. But still, yeah, Modern Family is much more to the taste of the Emmy voters.
Yeah, but still, you could certainly see the people in the audience and the people of the show love Glee, and the whole show started off on a Glee theme. The Glee actors were always in cutaways in the audience. Jane Lynch, her win was a very popular win. So Glee was probably right up there, but I think Modern Family is more to the taste of voters. You're completely right, and it's just more of an Emmy type show, and it might win again and again if it keeps up with this fantastic writing that it currently has.
Well, speaking of Glee, Tom, what about Ryan Murphy? When I've seen him win other things, especially at Golden Globes, and when he does interviews, he's so animated and energetic, and he looked like he was a deer in the headlights winning that directing award. He was probably the least personable winner probably of anybody I saw all night long. What was wrong there?
I don't know. It's very intimidating being at these events because it's Chris, you've been to many of them. There's this thunderous noise all around you. There's the cameras bearing down in the lights. It's really tense. He's normally very comfortable in that setting, but a lot of people were on edge last night. It was strange. Last night was a very different Emmys for those of us who were involved in it because they had a new press area. They took over the Marriott Hotel right behind the Emmys, and they used that as the media center. And it was very elegant. They had the red carpet rolled out there. Normally, we're all stuck on the roof of a parking center next door to the Nokia in these tents that are quite nice, but still, it's nothing like it was yesterday. But yesterday, on one hand, it was much more blown out and much more elegant and beautifully organized, but yet the collapse of the media world around us was being felt, I think, by all of us, too. There were all these sad moments I had backstage with colleagues of mine running up to me from major networks like ABC and others I won't name, who are suddenly out of a job and who are now just freelancing. And G-Time, do you know anybody who's looking for a job? And there was a lot of drama going on beyond just what was happening in these award contests as we are seeing this media world change around us. And it was a really fascinating experience to behold. The press room wasn't as crowded as it normally was. There were some empty seats, but there wasn't. Normally, the press are very arrogant backstage and cocky and the rest of it, and they're being humbled by life now. It was a very, very interesting Emmys. Also, by the way, just to continue painting the scene, there are a couple things I think people don't appreciate about actually being there versus what you see on television. Number one is the high security. There are helicopters bearing down above, and you have to shout to be heard. There are snipers on the tops of buildings all the way around, and they don't point the cameras at that because they don't want us to see that and scare everybody. But they're there, of course, to pop out any troublemakers. And my favorite thing, which you know, Chris, because you've been along many of those red carpets too, and that is there are actually two red carpets instead of one. And there is a rope that goes right down the middle of it. And all the nobodies have to go to the left, and all the cool people go to the right. And just watching that dance, who gets shoved to the left, who gets put to the right, is really hilarious. One of these days, we're going to have to do the ultimate documentary about what it's like to actually be there versus what it's like what you see on TV. It's a very different, but still very exciting experience.